What if, behind the laws of physics, the beauty in nature, and that deep feeling we all have for meaning, there's actually a mind behind it all? Today we are diving into the ultimate showdown, atheism versus theism. One says we are just matter and chance, the other says we are made on purpose for a purpose. Which one really makes more sense? And more importantly, which one actually gives you something to live for?
The first point is, as I've just said, as the basic structural and functional unit of life, it is the simplest entity which exhibits the characteristics of life. It can maintain itself, it can grow, it can self-organize, it reproduces, and it has heredity. What this means is, if we try and simplify the discussion, that if we can understand cells, then we're very close to understanding life, because it is the simplest entity that has the characteristics of life. And that means cells are going to figure quite a lot in this talk, but what I say about cells applies to living organisms as well, including ourselves.
We can recognize it by the molecules it leaves behind. We don't need a definition, and I don't think a definition will be forthcoming. And you might take the view that we'll only get a good definition when we have more than one example on which to study. So I think the whole debate about a definition is a mistake. Let's just go out and look for it.
So I think the definition of life is a moving target.
Where did life begin on Earth? I mean, did it come from somewhere else?
Direct.
What's the general opinion at this point?
That's still a very long way from creating life from scratch.
Right. Origin, the more we learn about cells, the more complex they seem. They're just incredibly complex things. And to go from what we can see today to try to reason where it came from, I think is really impossible.
What is life? According to science, life is a self-sustaining, evolving system made of cells that can grow, reproduce, and respond to the environment. It is based on complex biochemical processes involving molecules like DNA, RNA, and proteins. Origin of life. Scientists believe life began around 3.5 to 4 billion years ago, possibly from simple organic molecules forming more complex structures like RNA in Earth's early oceans. This field is still full of active research and mystery. Consciousness and intelligence. Science sees consciousness as an emergent property of highly complex biological system, like the human brain. It's still not fully understood. The hard problem of consciousness remains one of the biggest scientific mysteries. Astrobiology, life beyond Earth. Scientists are also exploring what life might look like outside Earth, and whether life requires water and carbon or could be based on entirely different chemistries. Okay, but here's the question. If life is defined as a self-sustaining, evolving system made of cells, can non-cellular entities like viruses or synthetic life forms still be considered alive? Can artificial intelligence or machines ever be considered alive? If life is about self-replication, evolution, and intelligence, could a sufficiently advanced AI or robot be considered alive? Philosophical versus biological definitions clash here. This question blurs the line between life, consciousness, and intelligence. What if extraterrestrial life doesn't fit our definition? Our definition of life is Earth-based. Carbon, water, DNA. What if alien life uses different biochemistry? Should we expand our definition of life, or is it too human-centered? The question of whether viruses and artificial intelligence AI qualify as alive depends on how we define life. Let's break it down scientifically. Viruses on the edge of life. Why some argue viruses are alive? Reproduction and evolution. They replicate inside host cells and evolve via natural selection. Genetic material. They carry DNA or RNA like all living organisms. Why some argue viruses are not alive? No metabolism. They don't generate energy or perform biochemical reactions independently. No cells. They lack cellular structure and rely entirely on host cells to replicate. Dormant outside host. They are inactive until they infect a living cell. Artificial intelligence AI, a new challenge. Could AI ever be considered alive? Self-learning and adaptation. Advanced AI can evolve its behavior, e.g. machine learning. Simulated reproduction. AI models can self-replicate code or generate new versions. No biological basis. AI lacks DNA, cells or metabolism. It runs on silicon, not organic chemistry. Why AI is not alive? No independent goals. AI acts based on programming, not survival instincts. No consciousness. True self-awareness isn't proven in machines. Depends on human infrastructure. Unlike life, AI can't sustain itself without external support. Okay, the conclusion. Viruses are borderline more like borrowed life. AI is not alive by biological standards but challenges definitions of life in the future. Life as we know it requires autonomous metabolism, growth and evolution. Traits neither viruses nor AI fully possess. Yes, science can describe how life works. Biology, chemistry, physics. But it doesn't have a complete answer for why we feel alive or what consciousness truly is. Okay, what science can explain? Biological life, cells, DNA, metabolism, evolution. Science maps out the machinery of life. We know how bodies function, reproduce and adapt. The brain and behavior. Neuroscience links thoughts, emotions and decisions to brain activity. Damage to specific brain regions alters personality, memory, even self-awareness. Emergent complicity. Consciousness might arise from billions of neurons interacting, but we don't know how subjective experience emerges. Okay, now what science cannot explain? The hard problem of consciousness. Why do electrical signals in the brain feel like anything? Why isn't all mental processing unconscious like a computer? The self-I. Science describes the brain, but not why we experience a unified self, observing it all. If the self is just neurons, why does it feel separate? Meaning and purpose. Science describes how we evolve, but not why we care about existence. Survival explains behavior, but not art, spirituality or existential dread. Science doesn't define the purpose of life. It doesn't tell us why we are here, what we are supposed to do. Instead, science helps us understand how life works. It shows us how our bodies function, how plants grow, how the earth formed, and how the universe behaves. It explains the patterns, the systems, and the causes behind things we see and experience every day. But science also goes beyond just explaining what already exists. It helps us imagine what's possible. Through science, we have discovered new ways to treat disease, grow food, explore space, and even understand our own minds better. In that way, science opens doors. It shows us what life can become, how we can grow, and how we might shape the future. Purpose, though, that's something different. That comes from people, from our beliefs, our values, our hopes, and the meaning we choose to give to our lives. Science gives us knowledge, but what we do with it, that's up to us.
That is the deep mystery, is the awareness of existence. And what I would submit is that we're conscious in spite of our brain. And so, in fact, the big surprise and kind of the practical lesson for human beings is that when your physical brain and body die, your conscious awareness actually expands tremendously.
We are not just biology. We are breath and purpose, stitched together by something greater than molecules. According to Theism, life is more than a fleeting accident of evolution. It is a sacred journey authored by a divine intelligence. We are not merely the sum of ourselves, but the result of intentional design. Souls encased in flesh, called to meaning, morality, and relationship with the Creator. Okay, according to theistic perspective, life is indeed seen as designed by God, intentionally, purposefully, and meaningfully. Let's explore what this means in depth. Life as God's design, the core idea. When we say life is designed by God, it means life is not a random accident. It is the result of intelligent, loving Creator who has crafted the universe with purpose. Every detail, from the laws of physics to the birth of a child, is part of a divine blueprint. Key aspects of divine design in life. Intelligent design of the universe. The structure of the universe is incredibly fine-tuned. Gravity, time, light, DNA, ecosystems, all balanced precisely. Theists argue this order points to a designer rather than blind chance. Human life is special. Humans are seen as the crown of creation, made in God's image. Genesis 1 verses 27 in the Bible, we have free will, moral consciousness, spiritual longing. This uniqueness reflects that we are designed with soul and purpose, not just biology. Suffering has purpose. Even pain and suffering are seen as part of God's design, not meaningless. It can build character, humility, compassion, and closeness to God. As in Romans 8 verses 28 Bible, all things work together for God for those who love God. Each soul has a role. You were born at this specific time in this body for a reason only God fully knows. The design includes your talents, your trials, your relationships, all meant to shape your soul. Why would God design life? To love and be loved. Many theistic traditions teach God created life out of love, not necessity. In Christianity, God is love. 1 John chapter 4 verses 8. Our role in the design. If life is designed by God, then we are not owners of life, but stewards, called to live morally and spiritually, love others, seek truth and grow in faith, trust God's plan even when we don't understand it fully. A metaphor, life as a divine story. Think of life as a book written by God. God is the author, you are a main character. Your choices are real, but the story has an ultimate purpose. Every joy, sorrow and challenge is part of a greater plot. For we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. Ephesians chapter 2 verses 10. If life is designed by God, then you matter deeply. Your existence is not an accident. You are part of a sacred, intentional creation. You are known, you are loved, you are meant to live with purpose. What is consciousness according to Theism? Consciousness is the state of being aware of and able to think about yourself, your thoughts, your surroundings, and your experiences. It includes awareness of the world external and yourself internal. Thoughts, the ability to reflect, reason, and imagine. Emotions, the ability to feel love, sadness, joy, etc. Intentionality, directing your mind toward goals or desires. So, consciousness is what makes you you. Without it, you are like a machine or a body without inner life. Scientific versus theistic view of consciousness. Brain creates consciousness, neurons firing, thoughts, emotions, awareness. When brain dies, consciousness ends. This view struggles to fully explain why we have subjective experiences called the heart problem of consciousness, where consciousness actually is in the brain. Theistic view. In theism, consciousness is more than the brain. It's the expression of the soul given by God. Examples from Theism. Christianity. Humans have a soul made in the image of God. Consciousness reflects divine qualities like love, reason, and will. Islam. The soul, ruh, is from God. It is placed in the body and gives life and awareness. Quran 32 verses 9. Hinduism. The true self, Atman, is pure consciousness, eternal and divine. The body and mind are just temporary coverings. Consciousness and the soul. In most theistic beliefs, consciousness is a sign that you are not just matter, you are a soul with divine origin. It allows you to know right from wrong, experience beauty and love, seek truth and meaning, connect with God. When the body dies, the soul and consciousness continues to exist. Why did God give us consciousness? From a theistic view, consciousness is a divine gift so that we can freely choose good or evil. Without awareness and free will, moral responsibility wouldn't exist. We can love and be loved. Love requires self-awareness and the ability to choose another freely. We can seek truth and know God. Consciousness lets us ask who I am, why I am here, questions that lead us toward God. Origin. Given by God. Nature, soul-based, not just brain-based. Purpose, to love, choose, understand, worship. Destiny, continues after death, eternal soul. Mystery reflects the divine in us. God created everything systematically, with order, wisdom, and purpose. This is the central belief in almost all the major theistic traditions. What does systematically mean in creation? When we say God created everything systematically, we mean with laws. The universe runs by natural laws, gravity, motion, life cycles. With order. From galaxies to DNA, there is structure and precision. With balance. Ecosystems, the water cycle, seasons, even human emotions follow patterns. With purpose, nothing is random or meaningless in divine creation. This belief reflects that God is all-knowing, all-wise, all-powerful. Okay, here's the final thought. You don't have a soul. You are a soul. You have a body. Your consciousness is not an accident, it's a sacred flame, meant to connect you to truth, purpose, and your creator.